3, 2.
Joining us on Lawmakers is Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor. Lieutenant Governor Taylor, thank you very much for joining us. I know you have a hectic schedule. We appreciate you fitting us in.
Thank you so much. Always glad to be with y'all.
We're only a few days into the session. We'd like to know, what do you think should be the priorities of this legislative session?
Education, education, education. I am really focused on trying to move Georgia from the bottom of the national statistics in SAT, in test scores, in graduation rates, to the top. And with proper focus, I believe that state government can work with local school systems to dramatically improve our public schools. But it's going to take focus, and it's going to take hard work, and I hope that the legislature will refocus itself on the issue of education. I certainly hope that this will be a year that we'll pass strong ethics legislation. And as always, we need to be supportive of our law enforcement, sheriffs, district attorneys, law enforcement at all levels, the GBI. And certainly we need to be mindful of our guardsmen and our reservists who are spending extended periods of time on active duty, hitting their families very, very hard.
Now, in terms of education, of course, the governor has outlined what he would like to see in his legislative package. I'm wondering, in terms of his plans for class size reduction, the localization of expenditures, and the plans for the virtual high school and the master teacher program, how do you think that fits into your vision for improving education here in Georgia?
Well, that's my major concern. He really has no plan to reduce class sizes in Georgia, and as a matter of fact, this is the third year that he has led with the contention that smaller class sizes are not a priority and that class sizes should be allowed to increase in Georgia. And this is, to me, a very, very wrong-headed approach to improving education in Georgia. We are already making a substantial investment to lower class sizes in Georgia. But unfortunately, these dollars that are being appropriated to local school systems to lower class sizes are not being used for that purpose. And as you visit schools all across Georgia, and as you talk to parents, as you talk to local board members, as you talk to state school board members, they will tell you that class sizes is increasing in Georgia. As a result, the quality of education is decreasing. Discipline becomes more of a problem in overcrowded classrooms. And I am really anxious to see the legislature come together and say once and for all that lower class sizes will be a priority. I'm so concerned about the lack of progress and the increasing class sizes in grades K through 3 that I am proposing that the people be given a voice in this decision. I'm asking the legislature to approve a constitutional amendment that will allow the people of Georgia to amend their constitution to say that the tax dollars that we're already spending to lower class sizes in kindergarten to 15 students and in first, second, and third grade to 17 students, that actually become a part of our constitution and those funds be required to be spent to lower class sizes.
There have been considerable cuts in education over the last couple of years. I believe the Republican argument has been that the economy is down, that revenue collections were down, and these were part of overall cuts that were necessary. Are you saying the money is there to go ahead and reduce class sizes and appropriate more money to education?
Absolutely, the money is there. My proposal for a constitutional amendment requires no additional funding because we have, since the 1990s, been providing enough money in the QBE formula to lower class sizes to 15 in kindergarten and 17 in grades 1, 2, and 3. But the dollars are being diverted away from that very important task. Our governor is proposing the largest budget in Georgia's history. For the third consecutive year, he will set a record for borrowing as a governor. He's going to borrow $1 billion this year. So $1 billion in new spending, $1 billion in new borrowing, but yet no commitment to return the $500 million that have been cut from K through 12 education, and no commitment to lower class sizes. Certainly we're glad that he's proposing no additional cuts this year, but a better course of action would have been to stay focused on education and return some of those cuts that caused a lot of local systems to increase taxes in the last 2 years.
If we look at education from the higher ed perspective, I know we've heard from some Democratic leadership that there may be some danger to the Hope Scholarship. I know in the last legislative session you worked very hard to ensure that that program would be intact. The Republican leaders are telling us that there is no danger. From your vantage point, how does the Hope Scholarship look?
Well, the Hope Scholarship is the greatest program that we have in Georgia. It really drives home Georgia values. Hard work rewarded with a college scholarship. It's important to have this goal out there for our kids in their high school career. And it's important to keep our most brightest, our most intelligent students at home attending college here at state colleges and universities. So Hope is a great, great program. But Hope needs friends. Hope needs folks that are committed to making sure that it's here for generations to come. And state government, starting with the governor, needs to be focused on making sure that the Hope Scholarship is here for years to come. You do that not by cutting the program, but by promoting the program. Doing those things year after year that encourages more lottery sales, that encourages colleges and universities to keep tuition low so that it is affordable for our Hope Scholars. Working together, the Hope Scholarship can have a bright, bright future. But we now have a lot of people in very influential positions in state government who did not support the creation of the program. They voted against creating the lottery for education. They voted against creating the Hope Scholarship in the pre-kindergarten program. So yes, when we see those people rushing to the table saying, well, I oppose the creation of the program, but now let me show you how to save it, we are very concerned about that. And unfortunately, based on the actions of the new leadership in Georgia, Hope Scholars will see half of their book allowance removed this year. They'll see all of their book allowance removed next year. And in 3 years, books and fees will no longer be covered by the Hope Scholarship. That is not the right way to save the program. That's not the way to encourage Georgians from all walks of life to be proud of the program and to promote the program and encourage those things necessary to make sure it's here for a long, long time.
Let's ask one more question on education, and maybe we move on to health care and some other areas. The governor's proposing a 2% pay raise for state teachers and state employees. We might point out that many teachers will get more than that because of the step increases. Do you think that is adequate? And again, is there money in the budget to have paid teachers more than 2%?
Well, the teacher pay situation in Georgia is disappointing. The major reason for the disappointment is that there was no pay raise previous to January of this year. And during that time, health insurance increased for our teachers by 17%. Our state employees are in the same boat. No pay increases until January of this year, 2%. Health insurance up 17%. This year's proposal is 2% for teachers, 2% for state employees, with the state employee pay raise coming later in the year, and a 13% increase proposed for health insurance. So it's very, very hard for us to say to Georgia teachers and to state employees that we're valuing you in this budget process. And I firmly believe that lowering class sizes, good pay and benefits, and a disciplined classroom with support from parents and support from neighborhoods and communities is what Georgia teachers deserve. And I'm certainly going to continue to work to cause our teachers to be the best paid in the southeastern United States. And in these times when we're not able to pay them, to raise their pay to keep them up with inflation, I think that we ought to be looking at class size reductions as a way to help our teachers. I think we ought to be looking at their health insurance and finding ways to prevent so much of the cost from falling on them. And I certainly think that we ought to look at the way we tax our school teachers so that we can always value them. I am fully committed to the idea that if we will value teachers, we will attract great teachers, and that the great teachers that we already have will do a great job educating our kids.
Well, if we switch gears now to health care a little bit, of course, throughout the nation and certainly in the Southeast, we are seeing the pinch of Medicaid and what's going on in terms of funding there. And I'm wondering, in your view of how the state can best appropriate its funds, how can we avoid things like the example of Tennessee, where they're just having to cut people from those roles? How can we save Georgians who are actually using this system?
Well, unfortunately, here in Georgia, we're cutting a lot of people from the rolls as well. Last year, eligibility was reduced. Last year, 45,000 kids of working families lost their peach care. We've increased peach care premiums by 375%. And here we are taking federal dollars that we should be utilizing to help balance our budget, and we're cutting programs that bring us $2 for every dollar that we invest. And the other thing that's very, very disappointing is how much of this cost is going to be shifted again to local taxpayers. It's going to be shifted to local charity hospitals. These folks that lose their health insurance because of state cuts, these kids who are losing their peach care, they're going to show up in our emergency rooms. They're going to be sicker than if they had seen their doctor at the initial sign of trouble. We're going to have more premature babies, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars when prenatal care could have prevented that. It's very, very important that we not be penny-wise and pound-foolish in our health care decisions. And again, with a record-setting state budget, $1 billion of new funds, $1 billion of borrowing, setting another record for borrowing, this administration should, I think, be very, very cautious when making cuts to education and to health care.
Most of the changes in Medicaid can be done administratively without any legislation being passed, but in order to take the children that are covered by peach care and put them into the new system, that is going to require some legislation. Given the fact that the Senate and House are both controlled by Republicans now, is there any way to stop that from happening?
Well, it's not necessarily an issue of stopping it from happening. It's an issue of saying that health care for our kids is a bipartisan issue. And the decisions that we make in reforming the way we deliver health care in Georgia does not have to be a decision that cuts benefits or cuts eligibility. It can be a decision based around improving quality. It can be a decision based around making sure that these kids and pregnant women and others that are benefiting from these services have case management so that we can direct them to the proper health care provider, and we can ensure that they're doing those things in a preventive fashion that will make them healthier. So I'm not closed-minded to changes in how we deliver health care services in Georgia, as long as we're assuring ourselves that the quality results, a healthier Georgia is going to be our result. I'm not opposed to seeing the private sector more involved in that, but I am insistent that we focus on quality outcomes for our people.
Now, you mentioned that in addition to families and children, that you think that ethics is another big portion that should take some precedence in this legislative session. How does that look, in that each year we, of course, have had some efforts at reform, but in your mind, what does the total ethics reform look like?
Well, I'm very proud that in the state Senate for the last 3 years, in a bipartisan fashion, we have passed very strong ethics legislation. My bill on ethics is one that I'm proud to say covers many of the initiatives in Governor Perdue's initiative. And we have to stay focused on more disclosure, fighting conflicts of interest, and saying to elected officials, now you have gone out and you've asked the people to give you the opportunity to serve them. You are going to be a role model for young people in your community. Are you willing to hold yourself to a very, very high standard of ethical conduct? I hope that the answer will be yes. And I hope that this is the year that we will pass a strong financial disclosure, anti-conflict of interest ethics bill. But in the rules that have been passed in both the House and Senate to limit debate, to limit the ability to offer amendments. I am to change the way committee action is taken. I am very concerned about how these new rules may be used to pass a watered-down version of ethics. And I hope that the people of Georgia will be very much focused on how their legislature is changed by these new rules in the House and Senate. The question is, has my senator, has my representative, in other words, have I been silenced by these new rules that have been passed in the House and Senate? And I think that the debate over the ethics bill may be a very good place to watch the impact of these new rules, which I think are unfair to the minority party and have the effect of limiting debate and limiting our ability to perfect legislation and make it better for the people of Georgia.
And that is going to have to be the final question. Our guest has been Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor. Thanks for joining us on Lawmakers. We look forward to many conversations with you through the session.
Hope you all have a great session.